Welcome to week 6 Bible Studies for Life. Today we're in the book of 2 Samuel, looking at a story about David and his life as he has just taken over the kingship of Israel. Is that the right word? Kingship? I don't know. Anyway, before we look at the passage, if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe to our channel. Hit the little subscribe button. Hit the like button. Thumbs up. We appreciate it if you'll do that. And then if you've got a comment or a question, put that in the comments, or if you want to let us know where you're watching from. I always love seeing that. And then share the video with somebody else. Appreciate it if you'll do that also. And then, of course, if you want to support what we're doing, go to give.exposedtochrist.com and you can support the ministry we have in teaching and in mission work. Got a lot of mission trips coming up this summer, headed to Vermont, headed to Paris for the Olympics to do some outreach there. So if you want to support that, you can go to that website and do that. All right, let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 7. Okay, now I'm going to say this. I say this to the Explore the Bible group every week, but read the whole chapter. Okay, it's important because there's a lead up to what happens here that's not included in the passage, but you need to be able to give your class this lead up, which is David has decided that he wants to build a temple for the Lord. That's going to be his gift, his sacrifice, his offering to the Lord. And Nathan has encouraged that. And then the Lord appears to Nathan and gives him a message that he needs to give to King David. So let's look at this. So now, this is what you are to say to my servant David. This is what the Lord of armies says. I took you from the pasture, from tending the flock, to be ruler over my people Israel. I've been with you wherever you have gone, and I've destroyed all your enemies before you. I will make a great name for you like that of the greatest on earth. All right, this recapping of David's life in a very short, 2-verse sense here. The Lord tells him, says, here's what you need to tell David, okay? That I took you from the pasture. You were the shepherd, right? You were tending the flock. And now you are the king. You're the ruler over my people Israel. I love, there's some words in here that are really good to help reinforce the relationship between David, who is the king, and God, who is God, okay? He says, say to my servant David, not say to King David, say to my servant David, and then you're going to be ruler over my people. These are my people, David. Remember that. Just the subtle way of reminding David who he is and who God is. And it's good. We need those reminders, don't we? It's a good thing to get those reminders to kind of keep us in our lane, keep us in our spot. Okay. And he says, I've been with you, right? Wherever you've gone, I've been there. I've destroyed all your enemies before you, right? And I'm going to make a great name for you. You'll be one of the greatest on earth. King David, still known. Greatest name on earth. Okay, then look at this. I will designate a place for my people Israel, and I will plant them. See that? I will plant them. This will be their home, so that they may live there and not be disturbed again. Okay, this is where they are. They're in Israel. This is their place. And he says, I'm planting them, right? So they may live there and not be disturbed again. Evildoers will not continue to oppress them as they have done ever since the day I ordered judges to be over my people Israel. I will give you rest from all your enemies. Love this. I'm going to give you rest, right? The evildoers will not continue to oppress, right? You will not be disturbed again. Of course, we know that this changes because of what happens by the Israelites, how they respond later on. But this promise from the Lord to say, you're coming to a time of rest. I am putting you in a place where you will be established, and you won't have the people attacking you over and over and over again, which is what happened. Now, part of that with the judges is they kind of had this whole circle of living obedient, falling out of faith, sinning, God sending another nation to discipline and judge, to then save them and bring them back to a place where they would live right, and then they would fall into sin, and then they would get attacked and punished. God would use another nation to punish them, and a judge would deliver them, and they would, they go in this circle, and he's like, that's not going to happen anymore. That has been the history of most people for all time. Most people have lived in that kind of disturbing life cycle over, and even personally, people live in that kind of cycle often, where they're walking right and then they fall away, and then something happens that causes them to have to reevaluate their life, and then someone speaks into their life, something happens, and they come back and they're restored, and then some people live in that circle over and over and over again. And the Lord's saying to David, Israel's not going to have to live that way, right? You're not going to have these people disturbing you. I'm going to give you rest. Right? The Lord declares to you, the Lord himself will make a house for you. Someone will build you a house. You're going to have a place. And when your time comes and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up after you your descendant, who will come from your body and will establish his kingdom. And he is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. About this, I think this is a promise to David, but I also think this is a hard thing for David to hear, because David wanted to build a temple. He wanted to build a house for the Lord, and the Lord says, no, I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. And then look, when your time comes and you rest with your ancestors, what a kind way to say when you die, right? Your successor, right? Your descendant will come from your body. This will be your son. So let's look, think back. Saul was the first king of Israel. David was the second king of Israel. David was not a descendant of Saul. They were from different tribes, totally different families. He's not a descendant of Saul at all. But he tells David that your descendant, your child, your son, will be the next king. So there's going to begin this lineage of descendants from David who serve as kings over Israel. All right? Come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. And look at this. He is the one who will build a house for my name. Solomon is the one who's going to build the temple. Now at this time, Solomon's not even born. But he's telling him, you're going to have a descendant who is going to build a house. He's going to be the one to build a temple. And this is a point of pride for David, and maybe this is a point of sorrow because he wanted to do this, and now the Lord's telling him, you're not. In fact, in essence, what the Lord's telling him is, David, I've never asked you to do that. So I'm not expecting you to do something that I didn't ask you to do. And since I didn't ask you to do it, I don't want you to do it. That is not your job. It's not your role. It's not your place. And that's a hard thing to hear, don't you think? A hard thing to hear. This thing that you wanted to do, that was you. That wasn't me. I'm going to do it. It needs to be done, but I'm not going to do it through you. I'm going to do it through your descendant, through your son, Solomon. He's the one who's going to do it. And of course, we read later on Solomon's temple and the beauty and the majesty of the temple. But David doesn't get that opportunity, right? He says, I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever, which is interesting because it is David's kingdom as well. And ultimately, though, we go back here, and it is the Lord's, my people, Israel, right? It's his. It's his people. It's his kingdom. It's what he wants to do. And so for David to be obedient, he cannot do something that he wants to do that is a good thing for the Lord, but he can't do it. It's not his job, not his role, not God's call on his life. And this is so key for us, I think, to understand that there are a lot of good things that we can do, but we must be doing the things that God wants us to do. Don't just do it because it's good. It must be what God has called you to do, what God has tasked you to do. And so this being in relationship with the Lord in a way that we can listen and hear and know and follow what we know God is calling us to do, not what he's calling other people to do, what he's calling you to do. You do that and you leave the rest. Somebody else does the rest. He says, I will be his father and he will be my son. Oh. This relationship. He will have the same relationship with me that you have, and I will be the one telling him what to do, because David, you're going to be gone. When he does wrong, I will discipline him with a rod of men and blows from mortals. I will discipline him. And it will be hard, right? But my faithful love will never leave him, as it did when I removed it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. Your house and kingdom will endure before me forever, and your throne will be established forever. So there is this acknowledgement for David. Hey, You know, him enduring his kingdom forever is your kingdom forever. But let's talk about this just briefly, okay? My faithful love, this hesed, will never leave him, as it did when I removed it from Saul. He removed his hesed from Saul. Saul as the king was blessed by the Lord and the Lord's presence with him, but there came a time when Saul, in his disobedience and his haughtiness before the Lord and his pridefulness, the Lord pulled back from Saul, removed his presence. There is a sense of removing his spirit from Saul. Okay, at this point in time, the Spirit would only abide in certain people for certain periods of time. It's not the New Testament. It's not after Pentecost. So the Spirit was removed from Saul. He said, but I won't remove it from Solomon. Doesn't name him, but we know that's who it is, right? From your child. Even though I will discipline him. I will discipline him. But I will not remove my Spirit from him. I will not remove my love from him. And this kingdom will be established forever. Great promise for David, that your kingdom will go on through you. But also a hard thing to hear, that some of the great things that you want to do, I'm not asking you to do. And so don't do them. I'm not calling you to that. You do what you're called to do. Finding God's will for your life, finding how God's going to move in your life, comes out of your relationship with Him, your walk with Him, listening to Him. And we've got to be in tune with what God says to hear what He calls us to do, and then celebrate what He leaves for others to do in our ancestry. No, that's not the right word, right? For those who follow, among our descendants. Among our descendants. There's a word I was looking for. And look, the next teacher that teaches your class is going to do some things in your class that the God hadn't called you to do, and that's got to be okay, right? The next guy that pastors the church is going to do stuff that the current pastor is not called to do. It's just the way it goes, the way God works in our lives and through our lives. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope that's been helpful to you at some point in time. Somewhere along the way, you got something out of that to help you this week. God bless you. Thank you for teaching. Appreciate all of you that are teaching. Be sure and like, subscribe, comment, share it with somebody else. We'll see you next time.